There is really one big royal story in town, isn't there? This is about Endgame, the book that promises to make the royal family feel ashamed. This is Omid Scobie's latest offering on the royal family, and it says it promises to reveal moments it should be ashamed of and shine a light on unsolved mysteries. Tell us more.
Well, yes, this book, The Endgame, of course, he wrote Finding Freedom, and clearly, if you getting the excerpts that have been obviously trailed and the interviews that he's doing, there's one in the Sunday Times this morning that you can get a sort of insight into what he was thinking, what he's thinking. But clearly, it seems like, if you sort of get the feeling, everything else but Meghan and Harry is bad about the royal family.
Yeah.
Now, he's saying that he's not friends with Meghan or Harry, yet there's reports that she occasionally rings him up and asks him if he's all right, if you're reading some of the excerpts. But basically, William is power hungry. The king is not up to the job, and Camilla is basically the witch of the piece, if you get the feeling of the way the article is slanted. Princess Anne threw them out was the one who wanted to get Harry and Meghan thrown out of Frogmore. Andrew's obviously a bit of a problem as well. So there ain't much good about the royal family, is what he seems to be saying, and they need to change. But somehow, Meghan and Harry are beyond reproach. You get that is the vibe. Although he says he's not pals with them, he just feels this is his version of events. Now, he may have, there will be some things that you might say, yes, the royal family does need to change. But to suggest Kate is basically doesn't want to do anything and is basically just there to be photographed. But actually, recently, she has been putting her head above the parapet with this early learning, all the importance of the sort of really education of the small children getting on the right path from a very young age is something that she's clearly passionate about. So I think we have to view... Look, it comes out this week. I haven't read the book, so I'm going to say I will read it because obviously it is going to be of interest and get the whole context. It's a bit like seeing the sort of juicy bits of The Crown, but you need to see the whole, because clearly these pre-bits are going to focus on the sort of headline-grabbing moments, because obviously he's got a book to sell.
Yeah.
But to see it in context, if he's got some positive suggestions for how the royal family can change...
Yeah, get rid of her.
I don't think that's going to be his line.
Right,
but how they can make sure they're relevant. Because one of the suggestions, if you read the article in the Times this morning, is the monarchy may not survive beyond William. But the monarchy throughout, from 1066 onwards, has survived crisis. And yes, it's got to be seen to be relevant. And we saw in the state visit how the king is giving MBEs and to a K-pop band. Now, I'm not very familiar with K-pop.
Really? You surprised me.
Well, and Gangman style is about it. Now, the fact is, the king is aware that he needs to attract the young, bring people along. And so by doing that, it actually goes to a great generation of people because they are hugely influential. And you see that the monarchy is aware. It has to be seen to be relevant. It's a bit like trying to change a tanker, but it's trying to move in the right direction. This book seems to suggest that actually the central players are not up to much.
Well, I mean, look, just reading this, it's just sour grapes. I mean, at the Queen's funeral last September, the Duchess of Sussex said she felt ignored by the members of the firm, had no desire to return to England. Good. Also, in the interview, he goes on to say Meghan has made it clear that she never wants to be involved in the British monarchy ever again. I think there'll be a lot of cheering if that was the case.
Yeah, and then this is where you understand why does she want all the title stuff then?
Exactly.
And that's where this is the problem, because they know being the Duke and Duchess of Sussex opens doors, and that is the problem. So this book is saying, on the one hand, she wants to pursue her business career, but she is being able probably to open those doors because of who she is. Now, she was, she has been an actress before, and Suits is enjoying a resurgence of popularity, but at the same time, this is where you think, right, there's an agenda here. And that's why I need to read the book in its entirety and say, is it a considered overall view, a sort of, you know, in a way, there is a path that he thinks they can take. And clearly, he's, you know, his sources seem to be basically ones that are in the Meghan and Harry camp, even though he's saying it's not from them. But I'm sure he's been briefed by people who know Meghan and Harry well, and probably, while he may not have spoken them to directly, clearly it will be their views to some extent. And it's another way the royal family can't respond, and they won't respond.
And rightly so.
This book.
And rightly so.
Yeah.
What about this idea that Prince William, I mean, you know William, I've met William, apparently he is cold and impatient to be king. Now, that doesn't accord with the person that I've met.
And it's not the person, you know, I know people around him. It's genuinely, look, it's a tough job. You know, you've always got to be on show. And I'm sure there are stresses and strains, but it's not the version of events that I get and hearing about him. You know, that's where I think people are finding it. This seems a bit out of kilter. It's such a leap to suggest, look, I'm sure behind the closed doors, who doesn't blow hot and cold, and probably, you know, what goes on in the office, sometimes it might be there might be some frustrations, but, you know, even when you see it in public, some of those things might come through. And we don't seem to get that. So this is where I think we're going to have to sort of take this book and just go, try and see what's the counterbalance to what he's saying. And that's going to be the interesting thing.
So, Rupert, can I just jump in here for a second? The headline of this book, the front cover is Endgame. What is the Endgame for Meghan and Harry?
I told you, getting rid of her. That's the Endgame.
But really, where is it all going to go? Are they going to be reconciled? Are they going to...
Well, so doesn't Harry say he's willing to forgive the king? I mean, I think it should be the other way around, really. But is that true?
Well, I think they've basically got to somehow get round the table and, you know, have a heart-to-heart.
You do think that's what they need?
That's basically what you've got to get round, clear the air, have one, you know, and just say, right, OK, you've said your piece, King says his piece or to his son, and move on. The problem is the breakdown between the two brothers. That's the trouble. And William feels probably quite hurt by some of this stuff that's going on. Harry, because he can't respond. And at the same time, probably, as you know, the Queen's great line, the recollections may vary. And yet there were times when William was very supportive of his brother, helped him as much as possible. So I think this is where we have to look at it in the round. And look, people might say I'm an apologist for the royal family. Well, I've got to read the book, and I'm happy to be educated if he's got a point. But reading the excerpts in that Sunday Times article, at the moment, I'm struggling to see that this is what actually is going on, you know, to suggest that William can't wait for his father to die because he's desperate, because he only knows he's a stopgap king. I don't think that's... No. It just doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't sit comfortably with me.
No, and can I just ask you about the front page of The Sun? Charles, Harry is a fool. Furious King Charles branded Prince Harry that fool after his youngest son savaged the royal family in a Netflix documentary. This is also in the book.
Well, I think most of us probably are thinking, you know, what this is, he has been, because it's impossible. And once you put it out, you air your dirty laundry in public, where do you go? And this is the problem. He's, you know, and that's what's gone and happened. And it's lost the confidence of the rest of the family. Because when Harry turns up, you know, they say, well, why isn't he at Christmas? They'd just be worried that 6 months down the line that they got their feelings hurt, something didn't quite go as planned. Then next minute it's going to pop up in maybe another book down the line.
What do you think about the public? Do you think the public would welcome them back if they managed to negotiate their way here?
If the one thing, Harry was great on, you know, doing his job, and he was popular, and he had a smile. But at the moment, you struggle to see that spontaneous, warm character that we used to see, and because obviously he's being scrutinised, and look, it's an intense world that he lives in, and there's even more scrutiny on him. We saw him last week in Canada. He was at an ice hockey game, looked happy, so great. I hope he is happy. But why do we keep having, every 6 months there seems to be something coming out? Forget the Crown, that's a separate issue, that's entertainment, and clearly, you know, we've got to work out what's going on there. But when we're getting, earlier this year we had Well, this time last year we had the Netflix documentary, then we had the book Spare, and now we've got the Endgame. And it's all three of those have been having a pop at the institution of the royal family. And there's only one group of people who are sanctioning that to some extent.